Hello friends, I'm going to show you how to make a ring using this Rosy Revolver, which is really awesome, but it took a little figuring out how to use. The one that's the flat edge, the open shank, or not really an open shank, but the flat back shank, because every time I did it, I was coming up with the wrong size. People were telling me to do all this math, and it made sense, but it's just a little too much work, so I'm going to show you how to do it without any math, just one measurement. So what you're going to need for this is, I'm going to turn you guys down, or turn me down, so that we can look at my work area here. All right, so what you're going to need for this is your rawhide mallet. If you have a Rosy Revolver shank, this or ring sizer, this is really what we're using this for, this video today. I have a file. This is a millimeter gem measuring tool, but you can use any measuring tool that you have. And I also have a jig, ring sizer, a pair of flush cutters, semi-flush cutters. And I'm doing this in copper just because I don't want to use silver right now. This is an economical way to do it, and I suggest practicing for yourself once or twice with a piece of copper. And this is 16 gauge half round copper wire that I got from Rio Grande. And I got the Rosy Revolver flat back ring shank sizer from Pepe Tools. Go Pepe Tools. Oh, and I have a pair of pliers. So let's get started. I'm going to set some of this stuff aside. Oh, and tape. You're going to need some tape. And make a little room. Now I want to make a size 7.5 ring. That's the one that fits over my middle finger. The one I used a lot when I was trying to figure this out. And I'm going to find my 7.5. How did I go from, 8, 7.5. All right. So I'm just going to make this so that that's out for us. Now we begin with our Rosy Revolver flat back ring tool. And I find the 7.5 mark. And the hardest part of this is keeping everything in place. So I'm just going to wrap this around until I hit the flat part in the back for now. And grab a piece of tape. And I want to put the tape on here so that I can still see where the 7.5 mark is on my ring mandrel. So I'm going to put that on there and then tear some off. Because even though this holds it in place better than your thumb could, it's still going to move around a little bit. And I'll use the other part of the tape I just took off and put that over on the other side. So I can see my lines on my ring mandrel, yet my wire is held firmly into place. Well, not so firmly, but better than my thumb. With a little help of my thumb, we'll get the job done. All right. So then I just want to trim these off. They're a little too long and it's copper, so I'm not really that worried about wasting it. But what we want to do is fold these over. I'm going to get those right to the edge of the flat part of the mandrel. And then come in and just hammer it so I know that it fits perfectly tight. And then we will, can I zoom in on this? I don't think I can. I just have to do it that way. Fold these right over so that they overlap. You want a little bit extra on there just to get this first part done. And you may need to hammer that down a little bit. I'm just going to check to make sure that's still on my 7.5, and it is. All right, so now we want to find the center line of this. This is, I promise, the only measurement you're going to do for this to get this right. Now, because the mandrel tapers down, you want to make sure that you get this edge right here, right where your ring wire is. And I eye it up on this side of the inside edge, right over there. And this is, I have it done because I just did this. I just did another 7.5. This is 12 millimeters. So I want half of that. I want to mark a line right down the middle so that the ends of the shanks are equal on each side. So I want to find the center line. So then I'm just going to move this down to 6 because it was 12 millimeters across. And I'm going to line this edge right here up with this side of the ring. And I want to look at the mandrel, this edge and the measuring edge right there. Oh yeah, the other thing we're going to need is a X-Acto knife. I'm going to scribe a line at the halfway mark, at that 6 millimeter mark with this. Now you don't want to use a pencil because that pencil won't get in there right up against this line. Can you see that? This line over here. So I'm just going to scribe that in there. Just scratching the surface of the copper wire. There, and that's right down the center line. And take off the tape. Remove that from the mandrel. And now I'm going to take my flush cutters and cut right on the line that I just scribed. Now if you have a set of flush cutters like I do, one side's going to give you a jagged edge, the other side is going to give you a nice flat edge. So cut it with the flat edge right there. Turn that around and cut the other side. Great. At this point, this is a great place to get these wires perfectly together so that your ring isn't crooked. Just eye it up a little bit, bend it and move it around. All right, that's good enough for now. Now, pliers. We want to bring these ends up straight. I'm going to bring this in. And the best way that you can do this is to take your pliers and right where the bend is in the wire, is this focused? There we go, I think. Just right where the bend is in the wire, give it a pinch. Maybe move it down a little bit and move it up a little bit, just to give it a little pinch. And it'll still be on an angle, and that's fine, we want that. So right on the bend, and I did hammer that on the mandrel pretty good so it was perfectly snug. And so now we have this. Now what happens here is, here's my size 7.5. What happens here is, if we were to go ahead and solder the back plate onto this, it's going to be too high and the ring is going to be too big. So come back to your ring sizer, this thing, and place that on there. See how that would be way too high. What you want to do is cut this wire so that, I need a pointy tool. This right here, the inside edge of my ring sizer is as low or as high as you cut those wires. So if I were to move straight across, it's hard to do this backwards, right there I would mark a line and that's where I would cut that wire. And it's easier to do this when you're looking right at it, not when you're using a third eye and a camera. But you want to make sure that the base is lined up to the inside edge of the circle. Down. here. That's all lined up. And then you would scribe a line right where, does that make sense? See the inside edge of your ring sizer? You would go, it's so hard to do in this camera. You would go straight across, and right there is where I would scribe a line. So come right here to the inside edge and go straight across and scribe a line right there. I'm going to do that without looking through the camera. Make sure I do it right. Go straight across and mark that right there. Straight across from the inside edge of the top of the circle and scribe a line right there. Okay, I did that with a pencil. It's probably better to do it with a magic marker or something. And then that's where I'm going to cut the top of the shank. So now we have this. And now we have, you can measure that back up, make sure that it looks right. You've got it at the top. I think I cut it I didn't cut it enough. So, oh no, I did. Yeah, top of the inner diameter of the ring sizer, draw a line straight across, and that's where you cut your shank. Then, so the next thing that we would want to do here is get this nice and flush so that we can solder it onto the back plate. So I bring out my jig for this. And this is where you have to be, you have to have an eye for. To get this in there, because you don't want one side sticking out more than the other, and then you go and file it down. Now you got a crooked ring, you've took too much off on one side and not on the other. So you really just have to carefully eye this up so that just maybe a millimeter or two is sticking out on both sides. And then it's always when you go to close it that it moves. Close this up. I can kind of adjust it a little bit. All right, and then screw it down, grab a file, and you can just file the ends of these so that they're flat and flush. Now you can also do this on your bench top on a piece of sandpaper and do it that way if you don't have a file, or if you don't have a jig, you can carefully kind of do it on a piece of sandpaper going back and forth to get the ends flush. But there is a little bit of movement that happens as you go back and forth, so that can be a little bit tough. If you don't have one of these, I got this on Amazon. It was about 45 bucks, but it is so worth it because you can use this on your bezels as well, and just put a little bit of your bezel end sticking out there, file it flat on both ends, and then you've got a perfect fit every time as you go to bring your bezel ends together to solder them. They're perfectly flush. So grab yourself a miter jig. All right, so now I've got two perfectly flat ends on my ring shank, and I can go ahead and solder a back plate onto there. We're going to skip that part of the video. Add on, and with the magic of the camera, this is what I have for this. I just did this a few minutes ago. So I soldered this back plate onto here. This is just a mock ring. And now I can come to my ring mandrel, place this back on here, and move it there, and I'm at a perfect size 7.5. Now if you look at this, there's space between the bottom of the back plate and the ring mandrel. You want that, because otherwise you've lost that real estate within the ring and it won't fit over your finger. And now I've got a perfect size 7.5 every single time. This works on any size, just so you know, with only one tiny measurement. So I hope that helps some of you, because it took me a couple of times and some trial and error and laying in bed at night figuring it out, like, how do I do this without multiplying millimeters times the or plus the millimeter width of the band, and then adding or multiplying that by pi, which is fine. I can totally figure that out, but I just didn't feel like it. I just didn't feel like it. So I hope that helps y'all. Rosy Revolver, Pepe Tools, you guys rock. Oh, hit the subscribe button. Yeah, hit the subscribe button and like my video. I'm trying really, really hard to build a following. And it ain't easy, if any of you know. And I'll follow you back if you have one. Just let me know. Comment, and I'll come and follow you back. Promise. Later. And you can find me in lots of places. I'm on Instagram as Tracy Gross Design. I'm also on Facebook as Tracy Gross Design. And my website is tracygross.com. And that's Tracy Gross, just like it sounds. Gross.com. Anyway, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed my video.